Saw a sign on a van some years ago. It had a picture of a pit bull, an arm in its mouth. And the caption was, "Things change." Change is inevitable in life. At one point, you are secure in a job, and then you're fired. Another point, you're skipping around, then you're on crutches. There's somebody who is very close to you, and later on you wonder what happened while you're apart. Things change. But how do we handle change? It's by being anchored to the God who does not change. Change will come. Whatever happens, God is always loving, always powerful, always faithful. Elijah experienced change, but he handled the change he experienced because he knew the unchanging God. So we're going to examine from this long passage we read this morning three things he experienced, three changes he experienced, and three miracles that were part of what was happening in these changes. So the first change, from verse 1 to verse 7, it is from the spotlight to obscurity. He appears in a blaze of glory. There will be no rain in this land unless I say so. Here's somebody declaring that he, in a sense, could determine when it's going to rain. That was something to make him a superstar. I mean, you can say it won't rain unless I say so. And we know in today's world in particular, we love the superstar, the celebrity. There's a man who could be a celebrity, but God says, "Get thee from here and hide thyself. Get out of the spotlight. Go and hide by the brook carrot." And we're still not sure to this day exactly where that brook was. So if they had been going through the land at that time, doing a survey, who's from the religion in Israel, they would have missed Elijah. But you know, in that place of obscurity, he experienced the provision of God. For God fed him every day through ravens, through birds. So every day there's a miracle at Carrot, but it's not on CNN. Nobody's seeing that. Human nature loves the spotlight. Mark 10, 35 to 41. James and John were asking to be on the right and the left. And the others were angry. Why were they angry? They were on the same place too. Because they were always fighting among themselves. Who's to be the greatest? That's how man is. There are some people who will never work unless they are in the spotlight. They do good deeds, but the media must be there to cover it, or they will do nothing. I go back to my days in the NYC, one guy, once you're doing something here for the media, and if you're painting a building, he's the one that picks with the paintbrush. That's how people can be. But you know, the true test of our service is when we can serve, when there's no media, no cameras, no nothing, and we are doing that just for God. Teaching Sunday school somewhere in a village, nobody knows what you're doing. You're not in a high-profile church, you're just serving God. Because you're doing that unto the Lord, not for the spotlight. Take the boy who gave his lunch to feed 5,000 people. We know his name? We don't. We just a lad. But God knows the name. That's all that matters. Some people give to a church, maybe to build Elim, but they make sure their names are on certain stones. Everybody can know I gave this to the church. That is not what God wants of us. You see, when I'm secure in what I'm doing for God, it doesn't matter who notices that. Because I'm doing that not for man, but for God. Take Paul. He could have been the greatest rabbi of his day in Judaism. But he chose to follow Christ. He left it all behind and became, as he said, as unknown and yet well known. Known by those whose lives he touched, not known to the media. Have you worked on a project, worked hard, other people get any credit for it, for the work you did? If you are working for God, it's not going to bother you. Sometimes you feel like you're pushed into a corner. But if God put you in that corner, it's for his glory. At seminary some years ago, we got something in a class called the high calling, about how God can take us and put us through some difficult situations. And one part says, he's put it there because there's some fruit you must produce that's only produced in the shade. When you're in obscurity, in that little corner somewhere, God works in you and produces fruit for his glory. So Elijah, away from the spotlight, but experiencing God's provision, God's hand. He had moved to that place, but God was still there. So, the first thing, out of the spotlight, serve God wherever he is. Second change is from the familiar to the unfamiliar. I believe Elijah had become comfortable at carrot. After all, every day, like clockwork, the food comes. Maybe he got used to the routine. We are people of routine, aren't we? Same shit every Sunday morning most of the time. Routine. You get accustomed to that. And then God says, you know what? It's time to move on. The brook dries up. We can't stay any longer. The command was strange. Get to Zarephath. Well, beloved, that was Gentile territory. Not a place for the Jews to go. But God says, that's where I want you to go. Maybe there's a place you don't want to go. Some people you don't want to deal with. You know what God will do? Send you to that place and to those people. That's how God is. Sent to a foreign land. Then he's sent to a widow. A widow? This woman is broke. Why are you sending me to a widow to be sustained? But you see, God said, I have commanded the widow to sustain you. So he obeyed and saw another miracle. That meal, the oil, they were multiplied. You know why? The location had changed, but God had not changed. He was still Jehovah Jireh, the provider. And you need to understand that wherever we are, God is there. So even though we are moved from where we are familiar, where we're comfortable, we can still function. Or we like to be in our comfort zone. So the dog that will run from you on the street will run into his yard and bark at you, because that's where he feels he's powerful. But God has been calling us to leave where we're comfortable. Abraham is the name that always comes up when you talk about faith. Because he did something radical, Don't take it lightly. Leave your country. Leave your family. Leave what you know for a land I will show you. So he's leaving. And people say, Abraham, where are you going? I'm going to a land. What land? I don't know. Where are you going? God told me to go. You crazy? But he left because he believed God. He went to this strange place. Take Moses, Exodus 3, 1 to 11. After 40 years in the desert, keeping sheep, God says, you know what? I'm going to send you to Pharaoh. Me going to Pharaoh? Egyptians didn't like shepherds. So why am I going back there? But that's where God sent him. Peter and the others who were fishing. The Lord says, you know, leave that and fish for men instead. So what kept these men going when they left their comfort zone? It was knowing God in a personal way. That's the key. You know. The song we had a while ago reminds us of the things that God did in the past. Didn't I do this? Didn't I do that? Those were not flukes. So if we understand who God is, those things might change for us. We know He hasn't changed. And we can function. And I'll tell you something else. When you're moved from your comfort zone, you have to depend on God. You're not in control yet. I remember when I went to seminary last time and last bit of study, I went in the winter. I hate winter. And in most classes, I was the only non-American, non-Caucasian, non-Presbyterian. I was there like in the middle of nowhere, but God was there. Why am I saying all this? When we face a sudden change, when things are not familiar, let's remember that God is still there and He'll make a way for you. In the desert, He can provide the water for us. Things might change, but God is constant. And Elijah experienced that in a foreign country with a woman who was supposed to be broke. He was fed for days. The meal did not run out. That's the God we serve. Change, but He does not change. The third change in our text is a change from hero to villain. When you look at what we just read a while ago about the oil and all of that, here's a woman about to give up. And this man comes and tells her what to do, and now she can eat. He has to be a hero. And I guess in that home, he was a very happy person. Things were good. And I believe all of us would like to be heroes. Who knows the Courtney Walsh back in the test match in Barbados, surviving those crucial balls where now can hit the winning runs. Hero, you know. But sometimes things happen that change things just radically. So here, the widow's son died. And that made a difference. So you see, in the presence of death, we feel powerless. And very often we find somebody to blame. It's been shown that when a young child dies, it puts stress on the marriage. So often it goes. Because it's you didn't do this and you didn't do that. Mary and Martha, Lord, if thou had been here, our brother would not have died. So you're blaming somebody. Elijah, it's your fault. You have brought us bad luck. You have come here and it's bad luck. What a change in status for Elijah. What was his response? To cry to God. He cried out to God. When we're in trouble, God said, you call upon me and I'll deliver you. He cried to God. The Lord heard the cries that came from deep in Elijah's soul. And what happened? The widow's son was raised. That was the greatest miracle of the three. And it came at a time of complete brokenness. This is a true statement. The greatest blessings often come from the greatest trials. When we're at the end of ourselves and we have no answer, we say, God, only you can help us. And he comes in for us. And we give him the glory. Elijah was reestablished as a man of God. He says, yes, now I know that truly you are a man of God. I don't know what may happen in your life that may cause people to turn against you, to see in a negative light. Paul, with the Galatians, spoke the truth. And those who love him so much turned against him. And I tell you something. As long as you seek to honor God, some people are not going to like you. Human beings generally don't like the truth. Tell me something nice. Don't tell me the truth. Even when it's for my own good. But if you're serving God, you will speak truth. And if people turn against you, you trust God to vindicate you, to prove in the end that you're right. And I've seen it happening. I've seen people who vilified me come back and say in a prayer, Lord, thou hast been with him. Only God can do that kind of stuff. You just have to be consistent and honor God. Whatever is happening, remain faithful to God. Elijah's experience was written for us that we might learn from it. Now, when things change and turn against us, we find encouragement in the Lord our God. He will see us through. So you see, we don't know what the next change might be in our life. Things change. But we know something. Our God is unchanging. He was there for Elijah every time in obscurity by the book of Kerith. That was fed by the ravens. God was there in that place that we don't even know where it is. In a foreign land, God was there too and fed him the miracle of multiplying the oil and the meal. And when his status changed because the son died, God raised the son and restored Elijah to a place of favor in that house. This same God will be with us in our changing circumstances. The winds might blow on our houses, but they will stand. You know why? Because they are built on the rock that cannot be moved. And if you're here today and you're not sure where you stand with the Lord, it's a good time to check and make sure. But I tell you, whatever you build your house on, if it's not on Christ, it's going to crumble. And I wonder at times I look at things around me, how unbelievers cope. There's so much that comes at you. But when you know the Lord, you are able to deal with these things. Because those things might change around you. Our God is unchanging. I trust all of us today would leave with this assurance that we know this God who does not change. So when the change comes, we can handle it because our God is unchanging. Amen.